And I want to tell you, when we talk about the fiscal aspects of British Columbia today, we deal with a well-known economist, independent, expert in government and business, Eric Anderson. So when I give you some facts, you're not getting them from any think tank. You're getting them from a man who has no axe to grind except to find the truth. The mainstream media, over the last 12 years now, I guess, 13 years really, have been appalling. I was in the media when the NDP were in. And man, did we kick the hell out of them. And justly so. We kicked them for doing some bloody stupid things. And we never let up. The moment the Liberals got in, that ended. There have been no more big op-ed features. No headline stories. No editorials. At all critical of the Liberal Party. We've all had to do it on our own. And had to find our own sources. Let's talk a little bit, before we go too much further, about these IPPs, independent power projects. Damien and I went all around the province in 2009 talking about these things. And we told people that they weren't little mom and pop operations. Not at all. They were huge. They weren't little run-of-river things. And they weren't weirs. They were dams. And we told them they're going to bugger up the rivers, without any question. Going to destroy the fishing. These things have all come true. But what people still have not grasped, and again is because it sounds like nobody would be that stupid, is that BC Hydro must buy this private power when it's tendered to them, or they must pay for it. And the paying for it is about 2 to 3 times more than the market price. About 10 times more than they could make it themselves. Now this has been a policy of the Campbell-Clark government. The result is that BC Hydro, were it in the private sector, would be bankrupt. There's no question about that at all. And the ranchers in the room would say, when it gets down to the nut cutting, we'll either pay this slush money ourselves out of our taxes, or we'll have to sell BC Hydro, or both. Pipelines and tankers. I cannot believe that anybody can pay any attention to what the government or the companies are saying about this. Premier Clark is unsure about Enbridge. She's unsure about Kinder Morgan. But along comes the newspaper magnate, David Black, and says, I want to put a refinery in Kitimat. She has no concern at all of how the bitumen is going to get there. It's the same line as the Enbridge, but she has no concern about this. And they should be concerned, and we all must be. Kalamazoo, Michigan. We're all old enough here, with the exception of Damien, to remember Kalamazoo by Glenn Miller. But Kalamazoo had a moderate spill in July 29th, I think it was, of the year 2010. The company said, I wouldn't want you to think that this is serious. And it was right by the highway. No problems with access. That mess has not been cleaned up yet, and it never will be cleaned up. We're not dealing here with the kind of oil that comes out of the tank they used to deliver to our houses. We're talking about bitumen, and it's tar. You notice that the company wants to call it oil sands now. It's tar. It's dug out of the ground. It's blended with the condensate to make it go through the pipes a little easier. But the worst part of it is when it spills. After a few moments, it separates itself from the condensate and it sinks. And it sinks down to the bottom of the river. And it goes around in great big marbles, big balls of goop. And they can't get it out. Well, this raises an interesting question. In light of Kalamazoo, what are we going to do when we have a spill in the Rocky Mountains? Or in the Rocky Mountain Trench? Or in the Coast Mountains? Or near here, or in the Great Bear Rainforest? How are we going to get men, much less equipment, into those spills? How are we going to be able to do a damn thing about them? The answer is we can't. And to Enbridge and Kinder Morgan, that's just the cost of doing business. We're not talking here about risks. We're talking about lead pipe certainties. There is no doubt whatsoever we will have spills. Environment Canada has predicted spills in the ocean from tankers. Now I want to talk a little bit about the fiscal state of our province. I see by a newspaper item just shown me before I got up that Christy Clark has on the side of her car, or bus, debt-free British Columbia. Debt-free.
Joke of the day.
We owe $171 billion. Since the Liberals came to power, our per capita share of that debt has gone from a little over $5,000 to $40,000. Every man, woman, and child. Well, now you could say, yeah, but that's the old stuff. Who cares about that? But you never really have to pay that, do you? Well, ask the folks in Greece, or in Cyprus, or in Italy, or in Spain, or in Era, what happens when the day comes, the day of reckoning comes. And the day of reckoning is going to come with this. We're debt-free with $171 billion in debt. $40,000 for each of us in this room. That's debt-free. And I've got to say this right now to the NDP. You're going to have to get off your ass. And you're going to have to counter this stuff. Because Premier Clark is having a field day. While the NDP gives out a fart a day with some kind of an announcement that doesn't mean very much, she's going on the same message. We're debt-free, we don't know how to run the economy. We have to make up our minds. Excuse me if I'm a little hoarse today. I've been having this little sort of horsey problem lately. We have to make up our minds. And we're going to have to make it up soon. Are we going to be run by large corporations hand in hand with our government? Or are we going to take back the decision making? Are we going to save our water? And that's the essential question. Are we going to save our lands, our air, our waterways? Or are these subjects just too difficult for the ordinary people to understand? Let us do it. We have now a situation in British Columbia that keeps me from shutting my mouth out. I can't do it. Not as an old man. I see the country literally at a watershed. I see the province at a point where if decisions and proper decisions are not made promptly, we're condemning our children and our grandchildren to eternal debt. And the kind of debt they're facing in Greece and Cyprus too. Not the kind that's just an article in a newspaper. The real kind. Now, I'm sometimes called a cynic. Well, I don't think so. I've been around the block a few times. And I know that when it's in their interest to do so, large corporations and governments lie through their teeth. Don't just shade meaning, they lie through their teeth. Black is white. It really is, it's 1984. This, as I say, could very well be our last chance. We have a BC Hydro literally bankrupt, a province that is close to it, and we have an environment that we're supposed to leave for our kids messed up permanently. This is the time we have to not only get out to vote, you've got to get your kids out to vote. In conclusion, we'd better make the best of our opportunity coming up now on May 14th, or rue it forever. Thank you for having me.